today? Good morning. Thank you. My name is David Conrad, and I am the host for Creative Mornings here in Seattle. Thanks for coming. For those of you, the theme, and our theme for the month is transparency. It was selected this month by our Creative Mornings Cincinnati. The illustration was done by James Billiter. We want to say MailChimp, Shutterstock, and Wix. They've helped Creative Mornings grow over 150 chapters now around the world, 53 countries, and we continue to sort of expand. And this is all due to the assistance that we get from these global partners. So thank you to them. I gave you a preview. Before we get into thanking our breakfast partners, we're going to do some 60-second pitches. So for those of you who don't know about these, if you're interested in doing one, you can send an email to seattle@creativemornings.com and let us know if you've got an idea, a project, company, you want to hire somebody, you want to be hired. You get one slide in 60 seconds to come up and talk to the audience here. So to see what that looks like, we're going to get started.
You guys hear me okay? Okay. Hi. My name is Mary Fritz. This is Nikki Proctor. We are the organizers of Fuck Up Nights Seattle. Fuck Up Nights, much like Creative Mornings, is in about 150 cities in 53 countries worldwide. It's monthly stories of failure, and Esquire magazine says that it's like TED Talks, but with more booze and less pomp. Sometimes we get a little sick of hearing everybody talk about their accomplishments. And the real truth is that in order to achieve anything great, you have to be willing to fail a bunch along the way. So we're giving people a chance to meaningful and most hilarious failures. We had a really great turnout for our first event, and we're partnering with Seattle Startup Week for our next event on November Holyoke at 6 p.m.
So follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Right now, follow us on Twitter. It's Fuck Up Seattle. I'll follow you back. Our failures are going to be live tweeted. You get 1 or 2 a week, as well as the crucial event information. Again, it's November 17th. The event's free, but we need you to register.
There's an Eventbrite link online. You can find it on Facebook and Twitter. If you are interested in getting involved, we'd love you to talk to us. We'll be here all morning. Thanks.
Thank you. That sounds fun and terrifying at the same time. Rachel Ratner.
Hello. I'm putting on a series of events every weekend, kind of reminiscent stuff, Rock the Vote or Rock Against Reagan or all those political punk events of the past. The goal is to get local bands together. Each show is a benefit for a community cause of the band's choosing. And there's going to be ballot information, various voting guides printed out by various companies like Progressive Voting Guides, and free stamps for the ballots. Each event tonight is at the Fun House, and it will benefit Downtown Emergency Service Center. And then you can go on to Facebook, look for Punk the Vote, and you'll see each one leading up to the event. And it's just a neat way to meet with the community, get excited, get people to vote, and make hopefully what could be a stressful voting time a little bit more fun. So that's Punk to find out more. Thanks.
Okay, so before we introduce ourselves, I want to thank our local volunteers and partners who make the chapter here in Seattle possible. We want to say thank you to the Public Library for hosting us this month. On exhibit on level 8 in the gallery is Mary Ellen Mark's Tiny Streetwise Revisited, 30 years worth of images in chronological order that explore youth and family homelessness, on display through November 3rd. So you can check that out on level 8. We want to thank Shutterstock. So last winter, our global and local partner Shutterstock launched a beta version of Editor, a new platform to give businesses a fast, streamlined approach to editing visuals for social media, presentations, and other forms of content. After months of testing of beta, and it's more than ever, the new version includes a wide range of design templates, personalization, and other tools to save you time while building your .com/editor. I want to thank Vitamin T. Vitamin T is a talent agency for digital creatives, matching the best creative talent with the best creative companies. They specialize in placing talent for design, front-end, and full-stack development, UX, copy and content, and more. So if you're a company with full-time or contract talent needs, or if you're looking for work, talk to Vitamin T and they can help. And finally, we want to thank POP. POP was founded in 1996 as an agency built to solve tomorrow's problems today. POP creates multi-platform solutions for clients including Target, Starbucks, Nike, Microsoft, and Nintendo. They have 200 employees between their offices in Seattle and San Jose, Costa Rica, and you can learn more about them at We Are POP. And finally, we have an opening for a breakfast partner for 2017. So if you work for becoming a partner here, please contact us. You can just email us at seattle@creativemornings.com. It's a super good deal as far as partnerships go, so let us know if you're interested. We'd love to talk. We also want to thank Bootstrapper. Bootstrapper Studios has been our video partner since day one here in Seattle. It's a tremendous amount of work that they put into this, and we're super appreciative of everything they do. You can check out their work at bootstrapperstudios.com. And also John Cornicello, who's shooting photos for us today. You can see more of his work at cornicello.com, and it's amazing photography, so we really appreciate everything they're doing. And lastly, we want to personally thank all of the Jackson, Dave Curry, Jeremy Beasley, Frank Mina, Grace Kelly, Angie Bingston, Jeremy Wheat, and Virjani Kulbali. And applause for these folks. They make this all happen. All right, are you ready? Amelia Bono is an activist and the founder of Shout Your Abortion. Bono was selected as a recipient of Michael Moore's 2016 Hammer and Chisel Award and Planned Parenthood of Illinois' Bright Horizons Award, and serves on the board of directors for the Abortion Care Network. She has been published in the Huffington Post, New York Daily News, Salon, The Stranger, and Alternate. Before I bring Amelia up to the stage, I just want to say that I recognize that a lot of us have differing opinions or beliefs about some of the things that she may be talking about. We appreciate you having those beliefs or opinions. Please hold on to them during the presentation and stage. We will talk where you're welcome to bring your ideas forward there. So join me in welcoming Amelia Bono.
Well, this is a great lead-in to what your book is about. Also, I just am going to be real and say that I totally just got my period like right now while I was talking. And I've never interviewed a, iconic public intellectual at a town's hall before. So now that like the worst thing ever that could happen is happening to me, I'm just
worst,
gonna
though?
I mean, no, I feel like if there's a place for yeah. Also, I'm not going to again. And I heard the worst thing that could happen is that I'm right. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really flattered. I don't know if you come to all of these or just this one. And thank you for having me, Creative Mornings. And also, I want to say that Rachel Ratner is so cool. That's the person that was just talking about Donald Trump. She is such an important member of the Seattle rock and roll community. And incidentally, she built Shout Your Abortion's website when we were just it was only me. And I didn't have any money or funding, and she just, out of the goodness of her heart, built a little WordPress that sustained us until now. And also, thank you, Joanna, for being here. It's really cool for accessibility reasons, and also because Joanna is just saying what I'm saying right now with her hands. Anyway, so transparency is what I'm going to be talking about today, and I just showed you a video clip of an act of transparency. I think you know what happened. What happened is I was interviewing Andy Zeisler, the founder of Bitch Media, at Town Hall. I was very nervous. I had never done anything like that before. And I just had a realization while she was talking in the very beginning that my body was doing something very antisocial in front of a large group of people who I wanted to impress. Usually, I was losing my ability to self-curate, and I was about to show all of these people something that I did not want them to see, which was, so I might seem like in that clip I was unfazed by just telling these 200 people that I was having my period, but I was not unfazed because I'm not a psychopath. But I realized I had a choice. I could sit here and do this hour-long interview, which was already nerve-wracking, with the knowledge that I was free bleeding all over my pants and also the chair that I was sitting on and maybe the most expensive shirt I've ever bought because it's long and it covers my butt, and then get through the whole thing and leave the chair, also cover the potential period stain, probably involve creating a diversion of some kind, exit the stage and move into the crowd without talking, sort of like my body against the wall and shimmy along the wall like a sniper until I could get to the hallway towards the bathroom as the hallway was filling with the people who had just exited the area in which I had been sitting on stage, free bleeding onto the chair, and then run to the bathroom all while acting like nothing was wrong. And that's where I draw the line. So, that plan just seemed untenable to me. So as you can see, I just told everyone that I got my period onto my pants. So to just back up, why was I at Town Hall getting my period on my pants? Well, how many people, I'm curious, how many people in this room have heard of Shout Your Abortion? Wow, that's so rigged, though, because I'm here, so maybe that's why. Wow. So in September of 2015, I was just in grad school getting a master's in clinical mental health counseling, and this was in the wake of all of those videos being released, which framed Planned Parenthood, the most trusted women's health organization in the country, as a diabolical black market for baby brain sales. And then there was just this insidious wave of legislation that was closing clinics all over the country, and states were attempting to defund Planned Parenthood. And I was so sick with sadness and this feeling of helplessness and anger. And on the House of Representatives voted to defund Planned Parenthood, I went on Facebook and I wrote a status update that said abortion a couple of years ago. And not only am I not ashamed, but it feels really clear to me that the people who are trying to take this right away from us legislatively are banking on silence from pro-choice women like me who have had abortions. And not only am I not sorry, but it was an incredibly positive experience, which left me with nothing but gratitude. Then I screenshotted it to my homegirl, Lindy West, who put it on Twitter with the hashtag Shout Your Abortion and her own abortion disclosure. Pretty much immediately, the hashtag became this conduit for people all over it really started in talking about their abortion experience on Facebook, and then it just started seeping out, and within a couple of days, it had back to school. And then I just started organizing the energy that was in Seattle and all over the country. People were just so ready for this to happen. They were so ready to talk. And I started trying to organize and learn more about the movement. And then I got a $250,000 grant, and I started a nonprofit that is currently still a thing. that sounds like a lot of money, but you can totally give me more because that would help. But we are an organization that exists now, and we're creating spaces for people in digital, real life events, and like and music and art and all sorts of ways for people to talk about abortion in a new way. So, like, as much as that site was really off the cuff in the moment, it was a choice, just like it was a choice to tell everyone that I was free bleeding at town hall. And I made that choice because I came to a realization that I was horrified about what was happening. But like, I wasn't using my full range of power as a citizen. I was constantly having all of these conversations with people in my life about how messed up this was, what was happening. And I would not always invoke my own abortion experience. Sometimes I was tending bar, sometimes I was just in a big group of people that I did. And inevitably there would be some woman who was like, hey, me too. And then we'd be like, what? We've been friends for 5 years? What does that mean? So I guess I just realized that my silence was enfranchisement and helplessness. And that status update was like just me getting some skin in the game. Obviously, disclosure about things that we are normally expected to keep quiet has become a broad cultural trend, and I think that trend is sort of like a lightweight word at this point. It's really, I think, a new way that people are engaging with public discourse. We share more about ourselves now than we did 5 years ago, and over the last few years, people have just started using social media to talk about all sorts of things that we're really supposed to keep them hidden because they could be used against us to damage our credibility or to make. But especially, I mean, you know, in the midst of this just horror show of an election, it's clear that all over the social systems that we are used to sort of dictating the appropriateness of disclosure in various contexts are crumbling. And so like the first hashtag that I remember seeing, which was people talking about some personal experience they had had and identifying with having had it, even if it was something that is normally like kept on the down low, is the Yes All Women hashtag, which happened in 2014. In Santa Barbara, a 22-year-old man named Elliot Rogers posted a litany of men, went out and murdered a bunch of people, and then the media and people were like, wow, misogyny, and then like all these kind of hurts my feelings. Not all men. I love my wife, or whatever. And then women on Twitter were like, damn, dudes. Women on Twitter started using this Yes All Women hashtag to identify just the barrage of like banal, normal, insidious, all the way ranging to horrible, objectifying, violent instances of misogyny that women experience all day, every day. Because not even a taped confession was enough to put my rapist in jail, because I now wear shorts in crowded bars, because all the men at my agency identify as feminists, but I still have to fight for space in meetings. My husband didn't get it until he spent a half an hour on this feed, and then he looked ashen, and he said, I had no idea. Since then, I mean, we've just watched as countless similar hashtags have sprung up and trended and whatever. Some have become organizations like SYA did afterwards. But it was, you know, like, so there are a whole bunch related to mental illness. Recently, Kid Cudi checked himself into rehab for depression, and You Okay Man, question mark, started trending, and it was being used by Black men to illness and the ways in which mental illness had specifically suppressed and silenced and stigmatized within Black communities. I have an eating disorder hashtags, I have attempted suicide hashtags, I have an addiction hashtags, you name it. One of my favorite byproducts of Shout Your Abortion is the Shout Your Status hashtag, which is people talking about their STI statuses. And I totally kind of called it before it happened because people just kept being like, yeah, I have an abortion and I have herpes. And I was just like, that's all within the bounds of normal stuff that happens when you have sex. And cool for telling me that. Imagine if people spoke about that honestly, how much less fucked up people would feel about having herpes. And then some ladies ran with it, and it was awesome. Obvious example is when Trump's pussy grabbing tape leaked. God, that's gross. The writer at the New York Times did tweet me your first assaults. I'll go first. Old man on city bus grabs me by my pussy and smiles at me. I'm 12. Over the next couple of weeks, Kelly received 8 million responses. And of course, we cannot talk about the way that hashtags have changed the face of activism without talking about Black Lives Matter, which has really just changed the entire existential landscape of race relations in this country, and which sprung from 3 women, Patrisse Cullors, who's in town right now, and someone asked me about that in the Q&A, if you remember, because I want to plug her show because she's the shit. And I got to eat breakfast with her the other day, and it was one of the coolest things of my life. Alicia Garza and Opal Tometi. And they started Black Lives Matter as a way to talk about the ways in which their lives had been state-sanctioned violence against Black people in America. And it's obviously subsequently go on to become much more, but it was this same thing, people using social media to talk about something that was deeply damaging to them, and getting some skin in the game, saying, even white people saying, I'm going to identify myself as a white person who feels like this country has a really fucked up problem with white supremacy. So for the purposes of this conversation, I think that we can define transparency as defining your own set of boundaries in terms of personal disclosure, forming your self-presentation of what has been deemed appropriate for you to share. Why are we doing this when it's so awkward sometimes? I think that if you look at baby boomer, civil rights era activism, those efforts were geared largely towards creating systemic change, fighting for equity on paper, in legislation. And currently, we are surrounded by irrefutable evidence that the systemic change that was achieved in those times is simply not enough. For example, abortion has been legal for 43 years in this country, and we are living in millions of women who do not have access to the service. There are 6 states with 1 clinic, and legality on paper is just not enough. Even with legality and with abortion, subsequently have their lives derailed by the expectation of silence and of shame and of being essentially forced to process this experience in total isolation. And it fucks people up really bad. And the anti-choice movement has deliberately capitalized on this silence and has been able to establish the boundaries of what is deemed appropriate conversation about abortion in public and private and political conversations. And in controlling those boundaries of discourse, they have been able to decimate access across the country. Abortion laws and minority opinions or needs or experiences, at all. And they've only gotten to feel safe talking about their abortions on their own terms. So in terms of abortion, I think it's really easy to see how we can trace systemic failures to failures within our social systems. Failures to hold space for the truth, even when the truth is messy and complicated. And as a result, we are living in an absolute hellscape of failed systems. Interpersonal and cultural systems, and more concrete structural political systems. The United States of America is a terrifying place to be because we do not know how to take care of each other, and people are desperate. I look at the way that personal disclosure is becoming the leading edge of political discourse in lots of ways. I see it. A lot of people look at an organization like SYA and wonder, well, how much can changing the way we talk about an issue like abortion really change anything systemically? In a really basic way, that is really depressing, kind of, I think that most people will be able to remain relatively apathetic when it comes to caring about any given social issue if they are never confronted with real live human damage to the people that they know and love. So, although polls in the United States show about 7 out of 10, it's like 7.2 out of 10 people supporting abortion rights, full stop, there is still a large segment of the population, these are swing voters, or people who don't consider a candidate's position on abortion before they vote, who abortion is a private issue. And they might have a mostly negative, relatively uninformed view of what abortion is. They might think it's basically a necessary evil. They've also probably never had a conversation with a person about that person's abortion, which is crazy because 1 in 3 women in America has an abortion. So these people don't know that their sisters, their bosses, their parents, their daughters, their friends have had abortions. And until these folks are confronted with some of the real and love and forced to imagine what that person's life would have been like if they hadn't had access to that, continue thinking that abortion is an issue that doesn't affect them, and they'll vote like it doesn't matter. Disclosure like this just changes relationships, for better or worse. When we decide to bring our full selves into a relationship, sometimes it ends. But sometimes the relationship expands because not only are we truly being seen and heard, but we're watching someone else decide to love us and accept us when we thought that what we told them was going to make them love us less. And in doing that, we're helping other people become more compassionate. But it's a risk. And it's important to say that when I'm talking about SYA, or whether I'm just talking about transparency in general, I'm not framing this as a political imperative at all, or a directive, in order to speak this way. And, you know, like with abortion, some people are risking communities of faith, their families. Maybe they have an abusive relationship. You know, it's really hard to be alive, and every day it's like an emotional cost analysis for me. You know what I mean? And like everyone has got to make that call for themselves. So this is not a prescriptive thing. I just think that it's an explanation in some way of how people use transparency and are beginning to like step out in this particular way all over culture, and like where that's coming from. And I think that it's coming from just the fact that the old way is not working anymore. A woman named Mindy recorded a video with SYA early on, and in this video she discusses about how she's never spoken about them before in spite of having all just liberal feminist friends. There's a baseline of stigma, especially around multiple abortions. In Mindy's video, she opens with the fact that she's a survivor of incest. She was horrifically sexually abused by her father throughout her childhood and adolescence, and this pattern of abuse continued as she became sexually active and started forming her own relationships. She was abusing substances, and she describes having sex in that time and how her body had never been hers. And she just had this totally disassociative relationship with sex. She left her body and let men use it. And so she got pregnant 3 times, and she had 3 abortions. And Mindy talks in this video about how choosing a time that she began to see that her body was hers. She describes the feeling in the clinic. Medical care that she received was the first time that she felt like she was deserving of loving, compassionate self-care. Mindy is sober now, and she has 2 kids who she adores. She describes her abortion experiences as integral to her realization that she deserves love. Can you imagine how much it changed the relationships in Mindy's life when the people that she loved understood these things about her and how much better they could love her? I mean, can you imagine what it would be like if you already loved a person and then you heard the ways it might force you to expand your own sense of compassion and break down judgment in place? So, lastly, I want to say, for me, is often a form of resistance to respectability politics. The people who fuck with me for having an abortion and talking about it in a way that they've decided is gauche would fuck with me no matter what, because they don't respect women. And also, you know, the way that SYA started was crazy, and it felt really scary. Actually, fuck that, it actually didn't feel scary to like lean into this insane melee of media coverage and, you know, put myself out there. And it didn't feel scary because the movement is built on the premise that we will all be more powerful as individuals if we are allowed to bring the full range of ourselves and our experiences. Because of this, I was allowed to be totally genuine and flawed and damaged and not an expert and not polished. And still the only authority on my own life and my own experiences. I refuse to make myself a tidy, palatable spokesperson for abortion rights in order to placate the people all over the left as well, and obviously the right, who are going to try to discredit me if I don't hide the parts of myself that I am supposed to. And playing into that bullshit is an insult to the women who can never be respected by those people because they're black, or they're queer, or they're poor. And so don't. Like, that's why it was happening. I was granted entry into various cultural, they were ready to put me on the news and hear me out. But that game is so rigged. And I just don't want to play it out of respect for all of the people who will never even be asked to play, and also because even if I played it perfectly, I could never win. Look at Cecile Richards. She is impeccably graceful and brilliant. She comes from a beloved political family. She looks like she stepped out of a Prada for J. Crew lookbook, and she just like has never fucked up. And she still stood on the Senate floor while like sputtering red-faced goons screamed over the top of her and accused her of being the like baby brain factory. So fuck it, I'm going all in, and I refuse to apologize for the person that I am. I am damaged, I am complex, I am resilient, I'm a product of my environment, and this place is a minefield. I've been sexually assaulted, and I've been damaged by consensual sex and relationships with men in ways that I'm only just learning to untangle. I'm 31 years old, and it's only recently occurred to me that I should stop shoplifting. I have forgotten to vote in many important primary elections. I don't really know how to sleep, and I don't really think that everything's going to be okay. I'm a really good person. I have a lot of integrity. I'm really smart. And I believe in love, and I believe that we're all connected, and I think that living as though we actually feel that way is the only thing that can save us. And I think that a great way to force the evolution of collective compassion is to actually be ourselves. How can we learn to love each other better if we don't know who anybody really is? How can we help each other heal if we're just constantly fighting to conceal our damage? And to go back to this video, how are we supposed to get through this shit without telling people that we are bleeding? We have to see what happens now. But I don't know how to make it happen. David?
Please join me in giving a warm town hall welcome to Andy Zeisler and Amelia Bono.
Yeah, we can just relive this again together. Well, this is a great lead-in to what your book is about. Also, I'm just going to be real and say that I totally just got my period like right now while I was talking. Okay, this finally actually And just feels ridiculous.
I've never
Second time
interviewed
with all of you. Intellectual at a town's hall before. So now that, like, the worst thing ever that could happen, I feel like there's a place for me to bleed out publicly. This
Let
is
it flow.
Yeah. Also, I'm not pregnant again. And I already told you what's happening, so the worst thing that could happen is that I'm right. It's going to happen, I swear. I feel like this is going super well. So the first sentence in your book, to just... Look at just feminism, so much support.
And it's so discreet, like you wouldn't know it was a maxi pad.
I mean, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're going to use it, I think the jig will be up, but...
What if I just, like, JIC? I mean, the chair's red, but, like... Anyway, back to the first sentence in your book, which is that... Thank you. I'm like having an internal conversation with myself about whether or not to apologize for being emotional, and I think that this is me saying, I'm not going to, but I thought about it. What happens now? David, do you have a question? Is this the question part? Cool. Okay. Yeah, so that was certainly, of course, that was definitely something I thought about addressing. One example that kind of total can of worms, but is Lena Dunham. I think that, bye wimps, have so much fun at the rock show. I'll see you there. So I think that the way that Lena Dunham shares stuff about herself is off-putting to people because it comes across as compulsive and narcissistic and not... she doesn't care if you want to know, and she doesn't necessarily... it's coming from a really insular place. And it just feels like blah. So yeah, of course it's possible to overshare. I mean, and in this room felt comfortable at times with some of the that I was saying. So I think that everyone's boundaries are different and be like, ugh. And also what they want to share about themselves, you know? There's also the thing where it's like, yeah, okay, it's just, like I said, it's this cost analysis thing. It's like, well, I'm gonna go in today and tell my boss that, you know, I've just been eating a lot of pills lately and I'm not doing super well. Well, now your boss knows that you're kind of a drug addict, so you have to like navigate that situation. So you've got to be strategic. Does anyone else have thoughts? Liz. Oh. Yes, I will. So, Power from the Mouths of Patrice Cullors, one of the founders of Sweater, is directing, and it's co-produced by Davida Alien Human Beings on the Face of the Earth. And Patrice has done this show now. This will be the third time. First she did it in Kalamazoo, and then she did it in LA. It opened last night. It's running tonight. I'll be there tonight at Langston Hughes, and then there's a matinee that's been added tomorrow at 2 p.m., and I believe there's still tickets left for that matinee tomorrow. But it's basically people talking about their experiences with state violence, Black people from Seattle. I don't know if actually everyone's African American, but people of color from Seattle. And from what I understand, it's not like dramatized, but there are like more conceptual elements and more like theatrical elements. I think it's very much like in line with everything that we just talked about. And I think it's also just the way the show is designed, it's so modular that it can just go to a new city and then find a new like badass female woman of color in that community, and then a bunch of folks who live there, and hopefully bring a bunch of white people to go see it and learn how the fuck we can do better, because Black people already know about how state violence works. Anyway, do you have anything to add to that? Awesome, that is wonderful. Do you know how to? Okay. Wow. Tickets to the show to people who are living in shelters and or their children. Yeah, I bet you could like more. I don't want shoes. Liz, I think you were next. Mm-hmm. I'm good. Yeah, totally. That's a great. We had this big event on September 10th at Washington Hall, and it was part of this to do it, and the lineup was just Pramila Jayapal, Jomo Luo, Hollis Wongware, Lindy West, really incredible. And when I was deciding what to name it, I was like, I'm gonna name it The Stomp the Patriarchy's Balls. And I'm a person who's very aware of the danger with conflating gender and genitalia in any conversation, especially amongst the woke. But I thought it was funny. And I thought it was funny because in my mind, I was like, nobody's going to think I'm talking about trans people with balls when I want to stomp on them, mostly perpetrated by people that are cisgendered white men with balls. So we're all operating this. And then Facebook event was like, I don't like this. So we started, and it sort of like got pretty internet-y pretty fast. Like it was happening really fast, and it was pretty clear to me immediately that the name needed to be changed, because there's kind of just like not, there was no way for me to just be like, well, sucks for you. We're about, you know, inclusion and all of that shit, but my joke's funny, so fuck off. Like, trans people weren't Asians. I talked to Lindy on the phone as we were deciding what to do, and I was just, what the fuck? And she was like, yeah, but imagine if you had balls and were a trans person and like your genitalia was constantly this, you're just hearing a thing that is your genitalia being ridiculed again. And I was like, God, you're right about everything. So then I changed it. And I think that, as to your point, another thing I was going to say about like how this whole situation was scary for me with SYA and stuff is like, because these are really high stakes conversations that I'm having really publicly. Like abortion touches all these things that it's really scary to mess up when you talk about, whether that's race or class or sex or female bodily autonomy or rape or religion. And I think that like the scarier thing to me than and be so afraid of fucking up that I'm not saying anything. And you know, I'm really good at apologizing. We're all idiots all the time. And especially like with regards to just like the rapid evolution of language and the way that we talk about issues, stuff is rapidly evolving. And you aren't going to always look back at something you said 3 months ago and still feel cool about it. So just like own up to it and then try to correct yourself. Does that seem like a good answer? Yes, the dude. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, I would love for you to cry. I appreciate that so much. It's just been 1 year, not only like no organizational experience or nonprofit experience, I just had like never had a real job before. So the learning curve is steep, and we're just beginning to, so we really are just like in this major fundraising kick. I'm trying to raise $50,000 by the end of the year, and that will allow me to hire like a co-director who is a non-cis dude who is helping me do all sorts of strategic planning for the next year and is working full-time, and I'm sort of working more on the editorial side and like the creative and things of that nature, and then also hire people to work on contract free, like people like Rachel just making a website or whatever. So really the next few months are a website that Civilization, Michael Ellsworth is sitting right there. Michael, hi, you're the best. Civilization is what do you guys call yourselves? A branding agency, design studio, and they have made us this incredible website, which I have been severely lollygagging in loading the content into the back end. Sorry, Joanna. Because it's boring and hard and I procrastinate and whatever. But anyway, that's almost done, and then we'll show that to everyone, and it's this really brilliant way that digitally represents like all of the ways that people have participated and engaged with SYA, because it's everything from graffiti to tattoos to people making zines, abortion dresses to like, it's just all of the forms of expression. But this website just like makes it feel like a movement and really aggregates sense, and it's rad. As far as like what I need from people, man, we honestly just need money. Like I feel so set to go, like as soon as I have some of that. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you asking, but I wish I could have a cooler answer, like, I just want somebody to make some brownies for a bake sale. But yeah, just money. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah, like my reaction to that framing of the debate question about abortion. So I was listening to that on the radio, and I didn't hear the very beginning framing of the question. Like, so I don't feel like I have a fully formed response. It was definitely person on a presidential ticket ever just talked about abortion, talked about women who have abortions and the abortions. It's usually just people being like, you know, the rights over here being like, you're all a bunch of murderers. And then the left is like, we will defend our constituents' rights to choose. And it's just like, well, you just didn't say anything about abortions. And you pretty much let the right stomp all over the issue to the degree where they've managed to run on a platform that 1 in 3 American women are murderers. And that there are a bunch of genocidal, bloodthirsty doctors running around murdering hella babies. That's crazy. So I was really glad that she talked about it outside of abstraction. Once I really started checking into that answer was when they were already on the vision, and the only thing that bummed me out, she was like, and I don't know if she was saying this specifically about late-term abortions or if she was talking of abortion is one of the most heartbreaking decisions that a woman or a family can make. And for some people, it totally is. And I think that certainly it's probably true almost all of the time. But my abortion was not heartbreaking. Many abortions are not heartbreaking. And I think that that kind of language really legitimizes stigma in a way that I can't get behind. That said, I am with her so hard that I just can't wait to color in that bubble. Yeah, and also, like, Lindy was talking about how she wants to send Hillary a basket of edible arrangements as an apology from America because what she's going through. Anyway, David, what do you? Yeah, totally. Ugh. Yeah, I mean, that's so real, and I'm totally bad at it. Like, I think that before even this started, like, I worked at the crisis clinic. I was in school to be a therapist. I'm generally, like, a person who lives in I'm, like, interested in intensity, you know? And I've never really been good at, like, the reset process, or I've done it in unhealthy ways. And I know that I'm going to have to, I haven't gotten around to it. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Joanna. Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for coming, guys. We'll be the next talk will be at Cinerama on the 11th of next month. The theme is fantasy, and Brooks Peak from EMP will be coming to talk about fantasy. So we'll see you in a couple weeks.